Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. 2 Weird World viewers have written of the terrifying possibility of losing contact with family members via time slip occurrences. These true experiences also pose the question, what happens if the time slip becomes a permanent reality? The disappearing car. Frank Macias is from Los Angeles, but his experience took place in Baja California in Mexico. It was 2.5 years ago when he, his son and son-in-law walked to the store, which was about 3 miles away, to buy groceries. His grandson Derek was also tagging along, being the age of only 1.5 at the time. After they had finished their grocery shopping, they walked back with grocery bags in their hands. The only adult who was not carrying groceries was Frank's son-in-law, as he was holding on to the small boy. As they got to about 1 mile away from their house, they all stopped to catch their breath and take a break from the load of the groceries. They were now at a curb on a 4-corner intersection, which was on an uphill incline. Suddenly, out of the blue, a white Ford Probe pulled up right next to them. It was Frank's sister-in-law and her husband, except it wasn't them. Here was the bizarre kicker. That white Ford Probe had been sold around 2 years before that, so the couple did not own that specific car anymore. They now actually drove a brand new grey Honda Civic. Frank says that the super strange aspect of this sighting was that his sister-in-law just looked straight ahead, without even turning to look at their group. However, her husband reached out of the car to talk and wave at the guys. He said hello and then quickly pulled away. As he reached about 50 yards away, the entire car just disappeared. The men and boy got home, and there was Frank's sister-in-law and her husband, along with their middle child, and of course, with the grey Honda Civic. The men told them about having just seen them a few minutes earlier, and they said it was impossible because they had been there at the house for over 30 minutes, just sitting on the couch. Frank remains astonished to think that there were 3 adults that day who saw the very same thing, a sighting which was absolutely impossible. The scarier prospect was that he had asked his son-in-law to catch a ride with them to the house and to take his son along with the groceries so that they wouldn't have to carry the heavy bags anymore. The 3 men all saw the exact same thing, which could also not be discounted as a hallucination, as the event had taken place in the middle of a clear and sunny day. He asks the terrifying question, what if they had said yes and he had never seen his grandson nor son-in-law ever again? A chilling aloneness. Mark's family had always adhered to their family rule. If members get lost or can't find each other, you stay put at the last known location to enable everyone to meet up together. His gruelling time slip event occurred in 2019 when he and his wife Hilda and their 2 adult children, Roger and Sarah, then aged 31 and 29, drove out to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. They got there and spent the next 4 or 5 hours sightseeing, walking and enjoying the shops and history. They were getting ready to leave after perusing the gift shops near the entrance, and most of them needed to visit the restrooms, which were conveniently right next door. The men's room was down a small grassy knoll, and, needing to go quite badly, Mark was going to run down the worn grass when he saw a sign that said, "Do not walk on grass." He stopped himself and turned to walk around on the pavement, which was a long way around, while it was only 4 steps down on grass that was already worn. He made the decision to do the right thing and walk around, but at the very last moment, his body turned, and despite his better instincts, he jumped down the hill on the worn grass, disobeying the sign, which he would normally have not done that day. In a flash he was in the bathroom, and at the urinal thought he heard his son come in behind him, but didn't see him as he went into a stall. Mark washed up and exited, as usual the first to be ready, and sat outside the restrooms waiting for his wife and daughter to exit, noticing that there was a long ledge to sit on to observe both sexes exiting. He figured that his son would exit next, then as he sat on the ledge, noticed that, strangely, the whole ambience of the area had changed. The once sunny, warm 95-degree day had turned cloudy and cold and was now dreary and much cooler, even depressing and lifeless, a dark day without vibrance, just dull colours. Even the people there seemed different, just calmly strolling with no laughs or excitement. There were no families with kids, just a few adults walking around, so more like an October weekday rather than July on a weekend as it was. The shops had been full of people buying things. Now the main shop had a young girl behind the counter with business so quiet she was reading a book. There were only a few people outside the shops where they had been crowded before, and the shop was empty when he later questioned the shop attendant. It had become so cold that Mark felt he almost needed a jacket, and after about 1 minute on the ledge, he went to the men's side to peek around the corner and scare his son when he came out. They often joked around like that, scaring each other. But after one man came out, and then another went in, and then he also came out, Mark began wondering what on earth his son was doing in there. So he went in and found all the stalls empty. His son was definitely not in the bathroom, as the whole place was empty. Then Mark started waiting outside near the women's bathroom, and finally, after about 10 minutes of watching both bathrooms, he questioned some women coming out of their side as to whether they had seen an older woman and young woman with red hair inside the women's bathroom. They told him no, it was empty too. Now he knew that something was wrong, as the family game plan was to never leave the bathrooms, which were close to where they were all standing, the decision they had all made together before they left. After 15 to 20 minutes on the ledge, sitting and looking around for any of the three, Mark decided to bend his rule and maintain a line of sight on the bathrooms every 30 seconds. He started going into all the 4 or 5 shops near the bathrooms. He quickly ran through the first one, then back out to the bathrooms to check, and so on until he did an entire casing of all the Grand Canyon stores. His family had disappeared. In one shop, he asked the young female cashier if she had seen a woman and girl with red hair come in. At the time, he thought it was odd that the shop had a big old heavy cash register, and the salesperson was reading a book. She responded that she hadn't seen his wife and daughter. He walked out of the bathrooms into the still cloudy and cold day in what seemed like a ghost town. There were only about 4 to 8 people left outside, walking between the shops at any one time, where before there had been 40 people. He was becoming quite angry with his family, at this point with no inkling that he may be trapped in a time slip. Finally, after 22 minutes had passed at the bathrooms, he decided that they must have gone back to the car. He was ready to tick them off, as it had been so irresponsible of them, not sticking to their rule to stay put at the last known location. As he was walking up the slope of the hill to the parking lots, the sun came out and it was warm again. He got to the car and nobody was there. He felt really lost for options and decided to wait them out at the car, as they would all have to come back to the car eventually. After about 8 minutes at the car in the hot sun, he decided to return down the hill to again try to find his family. As he walked, more people were coming up to their cars, and there also seemed more people around the stores, and now from afar he saw 3 people standing near the bathrooms, his family. When Mark came back down the hill from the parking lot, that was the most beautiful sight in the world to him. Now, instead of the dull day, was the vibrance and brilliant shining clarity of his family all standing there exactly where they were supposed to be, now in 95-degree sunshine. He now saw them from 80 yards away, and yet they hadn't seen each other near the bathrooms 2 or 3 yards from each other during the timefold transfer, which is what he has since learned it was. Reunited, they all started to debate and question each other's decisions and actions. They were pointing fingers at Mark for breaking the rule, his rule. He hadn't stayed at the last known location, the bathrooms. He had only one question for them: had they gone to any stores, or were they behind him for use of the bathrooms? They told him they were behind him and never set foot in any store. They had been waiting for him for just over 30 minutes outside the bathrooms, which is where Mark was also waiting for them for 22 minutes, and then he later waited for 8 minutes at the car. It was only after receiving his family's information did he realise that his split-second altered decision to run down the grassy knoll and into the men's room, disobeying the sign he normally would have obeyed, somehow initiated the time slip. He now believed that he was not supposed to do that day. He pieced together the strange aspects: the cold, cloudy day needing a coat in July when it was 95 degrees, the once crowded atmosphere going to empty, the young woman reading a book next to the huge old cash register. The day had suddenly turned dark and devoid of vivid colours, until he walked up the hill and out of whatever place he was trapped in. The heated day and sun returning coincided with him seeing several women wearing long sleeves layered with coats, then walking up the hill. Mark often wonders what would have happened if he had stayed put for a few hours. Would he have been trapped in another dimension or time fold forever? He now wishes he had recognised the time slip or known about adjacent time folds to check the date, year and time with the woman in the store, but his mind was focused on finding his family. In the end, he concluded that nobody was at fault, but blamed his decision to go against what he was meant to do, walk around to the bathrooms, instead of, uncharacteristically, taking the 4 illegal steps down there which created the time disturbance. It was as if his decision tore the fabric of space-time, ending him up in an adjacent fold of time at the Grand Canyon when his family wasn't there, a time when he might not have yet been married and his children unborn. It was strange to think he was searching for his adult children who weren't born yet. The whole ambience was of a 1970s to 1980s October day. He was happy and grateful to have his family back that day, graciously accepting their blame for not staying put at the bathrooms as they had. He believes 100% that his instantaneous diverted decision created the time tear, and that he almost lost his family for disobeying a "do not walk on grass" sign. Mark is a very rational and practical engineer who now believes that time is not linear. In fact, that the concept of time does not exist and everything is happening at once in any particular location, just on adjacent folds. He believes he corrupted some kind of time fold alignment, keeper or sensor when he did something unexpected and ran down the grass to the bathrooms.